Rochester Airport is a civilian airfield in Kent. Currently, the airfield has 2 grass runways and is home to a number of businesses. It holds a vast history and has contributed to aviation across the UK. Still developing, Rochester Airport is expected to continue its history for many years to come. Rochester Airport began when Shorts Brothers, an aerospace company, needed a location to fly their land-based aircraft from. Shorts began manufacturing aircraft in 1909 at Laysdown in the Isle of Sheppey. Due to the company's success and an increasing number of seaplanes being produced, it became clear that Shorts needed a larger premises with access to the sea. Therefore, in 1913, Shorts obtained a new site above Rochester Bridge and established the Seaplane Works in 1914. In 1932 at Rochester Esplanade, Shorts designed the Scion, a 5-passenger land plane. At the time, there wasn't a suitable airfield in the local area to fly aircraft from, so the Scion made its first flight in 1933 at Gravesend Airport. Around this time, Rochester City Council became interested in setting up a municipal airport between the Chatham and Rochester Maidstone roads.
Midway Council themselves looked around and found this site. The ground itself belonged at that time to the Bridgewarden Trust. They then approached the Bridgewarden Trust and then agreed to actually sell or give the ground to the Rochester City Council as it was then.
Shorts Brothers requested to use the land for test flights and were given the lease for the land in 1933 on the condition that it could also be used as a public airfield. June 1934 brought about the first air service from the airport, which was an hourly ferry to Southend Aerodrome. The airport also held air shows including an Empire Air Week and Carnival, in which Amy Johnson participated in 1936. In 1937, the Air Ministry suggested that Shorts manage an Raf Flying School at the site. This was the number 23 Elementary and Reserve Flying Training School, formed in April 1938. To accommodate the flight school, hangars and an admission block were constructed. They flew Avro 504Ns, which were later replaced by Avro Tutors, and in June 1939, Miles Magisters. The RAF pilots progressed on to Hawker Hart, Hind and Audax aircraft. The school transferred to Belfast in September 1939, just before World War II broke out.
Obviously Rochester Airport was not a fighter or bomber station as such. The main history of the airport developed about building the short Stirling 4-engine heavy bomber.
The Stirling was the first 4-engine bomber aircraft used by the RAF. Buildings at the end of the airfield, as well as the hangar known as Hangar 3, contributed to the production of the Stirling bomber. Although this did mean that Rochester Airport and the buildings on the site were vulnerable to air attack due to their proximity to France. As a result, the airfield was defended by the 33rd Battalion Kent Home Guard in 1940.
The biggest bombing was August 1940. It had about 3 heavy attacks by the Luftwaffe.
Overall, the attacks caused damage to several Stirlings as well as the works, leading to the suspension of Stirling production for 2 years until 1942. In 1946, the government decided to move Shorts production to Belfast after it was nationalised. Without industrial support, the site at Rochester became derelict. Sparking the revival of Rochester Airport, B&P Swift Limited, producers of flap and undercarriage actuators, moved into the main factory at the site. In 1947, B&P Swift acquired Elliott Brothers, forming Elliott Flight Automation. Elliott Flight Automation went through a number of changes and eventually became BAE Systems in 1999, after merging with British Aerospace. BAE Systems is situated at the northern end of Rochester Airport, although now separate from the airfield. Since being there, it has made developments in defence, security and aerospace technologies. In the modern day, Rochester is home to a variety of organisations including engineering and fire protection companies, a number of flying schools, shops, museums and the Midway Aircraft Preservation Society.
We have 2 aircraft in the workshop. One of them is a short Scion, which was built here in 1937, and its first flight was from the River Midway as a float plane. We own the aeroplane and are restoring it back to static museum standard, and we've been very fortunate to get sponsorship from the Rochester Bridge Trust, who recognised the fact that this is a very worthwhile project with local history. The other aircraft we've got is a Spitfire Mark 16, That's due to go back probably in 2020.
We rebuilt 5 Spitfires, one flying, which is PL 965, which now flies from North Weald, owned by Peter Teichmann, and he pops in here occasionally, which is rather nice. Very proud of that, because being an all-volunteer group.
We are important locally because we act really as a group, like-minded people, and it's good for people that are retired.
Also based at the airfield is the old airport garage museum.
It started with one petrol pump. Somebody gave me a petrol pump and I restored it and I had it at home. And somebody gave me another one. That was it. When you get 2, you're a collector. I then started actively looking for more and more pumps and garage equipment, and this is the result. The items that I've got range from 1904, which is an old motor spirit barrel, and they do actually go right up to present day. It's quite unique because there is not another one like this in the area, and it's just a bit of a trip down memory lane. It's amazing how many people will stand and look at something and say, oh, I had one of these, or my dad had this, and you know, it is a nostalgic thing. That's what it's all about.
Finally, GASCO, the General Aviation Safety Council, has an office on the site.
We are an educational charity, and we run lots of safety events and seminars for pilots all around the country. We cover the whole of the UK. We're made up of lots of different other aviation bodies like the CAA, NAPS, the British Microlight Aircraft Association, the LAA, lots and lots of different aviation organisations.
In 2018, a new air ambulance Kent, Surrey and Sussex base was built at Rochester Airport. The charity relies on donations to continue their work. They also have a base at Red Hill Aerodrome, which is their main operational base, Rochester being their forward base.
So the purpose of our organisation is to provide pre-hospital care to vulnerable people in the communities of Kent, Surrey and Sussex. The benefits of being at Rochester is the higher ground compared to Red Hill being on the lower ground, which plays a significant role with how we plan our operation in the future. So if, for instance, there was a fog one day or was a heavy mist in Surrey, we could plan to have our aircrafts come up to Rochester onto the higher ground and be able to fly and not be offline. We have an Augusta Westland 169 and we have an MD 902, and they are both fully equipped to deal with the pre-hospital care that we give to our patients. We moved in August. Here is about 30 staff members, but in this base alone we're only a small number of people, and it's predominantly the fundraising staff. For some people it might not be very important at all because they may never need us. However, for the people who are critically injured, we are the difference between them maybe be able to go home or them maybe no longer being with us.
Midway Council said that they would fund refurbishment at Rochester Airport in 2012. It was originally agreed that they could have a tarmac runway and some new buildings. However, in order for this to happen, the airfield would lose runway 3416 as the council were planning on using this land for business development.
The initial plan was accepted in 2014. Unfortunately, there was a local resident who objected, and it was found that we needed a full environmental impact assessment. We would like to have a tarmac runway for a number of reasons. We are obviously losing runway 3416. This means that some of the aircraft we have here will not be able to take off with crosswinds components. When landing on grass, it would be safer to land on tarmac with a crosswind because there's more grip and adhesion, but people would actually be up a lot higher and quicker. So the noise envelope around the aeroplane wouldn't disappear, but it would be that much higher, therefore the noise would be reduced in comparison. It also means that the stopping distances are better on tarmac than grass. The negative effects that have been reported are principally that we'll be bringing in jets, which isn't the case because the runway isn't long enough. The other factors are that people are saying that there'll be more movements and things of that nature. There wouldn't. There would be during the winter months a few more movements because obviously when the actual ground itself at the moment gets to a boggy state, we don't fly. Because time's gone on, costs have gone up, we've had to drop the runway And what we're actually looking at doing is doing everything apart from the runway itself. This site itself is looking at a number of phases.
The first phase relates to the airport. Planning permission has been granted for the construction of new facilities, including a hub building, as well as repairs on the older buildings.
The hub building, which will encompass the couple of flying schools, the GASCO office, our office, a restaurant, and indeed a control tower. All of that combined with moving of the fuel farm that we've got. We put in planning requests for the refurbishment of Hangar 3. We're not changing the style of that, and Hangar 4 it's just a bit of maintenance with some guttering and new doors. We had another application which was for the MAPS building and some aircraft hangars. They were approved. The most recent one was for the helipads out the front because we were relocating them. It'll actually stop us from mending things on a daily basis because it'll be new. It'll be a lot warmer. At the moment, none of the buildings that we're in are airtight. The whole building being new, purpose-built, will reduce costs because we won't have to be wasting electricity for the heaters and things of that nature. It'll make it a far better place to work for those that are working or training, a much better training environment, and also it'll actually hopefully encourage people to come along, have a look, as it'll be a welcoming site as opposed to somebody looking through the gate, looking at the building and seeing how dilapidated it is, run down. It doesn't inspire people, whereas the new build will inspire people and future generations.
MAPS will get a new purpose-built hangar. It will become our base and it will replace all of the collection of porter cabins and various workshops that we've got dotted around, which are very, very difficult to maintain now. We've got leaking roofs and all sorts of rot. And we've become the public face to the airport as well, because we will be positioned right by the entrance. So quite an important milestone for us as a group.
It causes a little bit of a problem actually, because once the development is finished, this area that I use will actually be airside. So the general public won't be able to access it. So what I need to do is see about relocating on the airfield to a place where it's more accessible to the public, and hopefully a little bit more space so we can develop the museum.
Phase 2 is the Innovation Park Midway, which will give the opportunity for businesses in Midway to develop and grow. As mentioned before, this will cost the airfield runway 3416, leaving it with one runway.
I think Rochester Airport in the past has been undervalued. I think that there are people around now that's beginning to realise that we are here for the future. There is a benefit having a Rochester Airport here.
I feel it's played a fundamental part in the local community and the local economy, and hopefully with the upcoming developments, it will play a fundamental role in the future of Midway.
It's a really nice environment actually to work in. You know, people are always really nice here.
It's a historic site. I think it's great that it's still operating, and I think it's great that it's being developed, because we don't want to lose it.
Flying's in our blood to some extent, and the last thing we want to see is the aircraft we're rebuilding rebuilt somewhere else other than the airport. It's got to be the airport or nowhere else, to be honest about it.
Looking forward, I can only see more generations of future pilots, air traffic controllers and engineers actually being started off on their career here at Rochester. We're already very much involved in a lot of the schools. They come up and have visits and things of that nature for training and interest, and the new build will just make it more inspiring, I hope. It'll be good to see the project finished. Then we're in a position where, you know, it's there for future generations to enjoy and benefit from.